Welcome to the Rusted Garden. It's the evening of October 9th, and you might notice a lot of change out there. The Rusted Garden is closing. I'm going to be moving, and we're going to be moving hopefully to 2 to 3 acres. So as this garden closes, I will be opening up the new Rusted Garden, and I'm going to take you through that whole process from the first turn of the soil. And I really appreciate the last 5 years getting to show off this garden and have all of you be part of that whole experience. I've really enjoyed it. I still want to give a tour. I'm going to go over, what's going on with me departing this area. But one thing you might hear in the background is you hear that fan going. That is the neighbor's fan. If you ever wondered what it was, they're air conditions. They have 2 of them. They're always running. I'm looking to move to a place that's a little bit more rural, so I don't have the airplanes flying over. I don't have those sounds. And as much as I'm sad to leave this garden and this neighborhood, my kids have grown up and it's really time to go. I want to give you a quick look at everything up here, then we'll move out to the garden and I'll just talk about moving and changes I'm making. The cool weather crops are in. I had to go through 3 plantings because the weather has been ridiculous. There's peas and lettuce down there, and it kept getting hot, and then it rained for 10 days, 14 days it was humid. The plants died off, but they're finally going well, and these are going to mature. This is a red lettuce. You can plant it pretty closely together. That's not going to get to a full head, but just cut the leaves off, leave the roots in, and that will keep coming back till a hard frost comes. As I always say, the cool weather vegetables, lettuces, greens, arugula, can take a frost and they do perfectly fine. That's arugula up there. These are finally coming up, but these should be really 2 or 3 times as large. But September's just been crazy warm. All different greens containers. These were where my tomatoes were. If you take a look at those peppers, there are holes in the bottom there got plugged up or clogged up. So all that loss down there, that's all from them being waterlogged and soggy. So you want great drainage or your plants may look like this. And when this happens, sometimes we start watering more often and not really thinking that maybe it's an overwatering issue. But just to give you an example, they're being left to dry. More peas, some of the lettuce that actually survived, I think that was from the second planting, and most stuff should be about that large. But it looks pretty good. So the cool weather crops are in. These are all being fed for the fall. Just they've got worm castings put in, but they're being given worm casting tea from Vermistera. That's just a great nutrient, low NP and K for your containers, and I'll put a link in for that. I've talked about that product before. Over here, this is just a quick way. I've pulled out my pepper garden. I'll talk about that shortly. I'm letting my Facing Heaven peppers dry this way. If it's not going to be really above 85 degrees, you could have cool nights, 80-degree days, 70-degree days. You can let your peppers dry for a bit right on the plant. Those are perfect hot pepper flake peppers. I use them all winter long. All right, let's get out into the garden. I'm going to show you a little before and after, and I'm just going to talk about what's going on and give you a tour of everything down there. Here's one last look for the warm weather crops. It's all coming down this weekend. And this is what the Rusted Garden looks now, about 7 days later. I'll go through the tour and just show you how I, changed it up to this point. As again, we're getting ready to move, so I'm thinning out the beds, so the new family coming in has a little bit more space. Hopefully they'll love the gardens. All my flower beds have been cut back and they've been mulched again for the move. The peppers are still going strong. This isn't the final video yet for the Rusted Garden here. But I'll probably do maybe one more tour, before I leave here. Mulched out this area, removed the shelving system here, Shirley Simple shelving. It's right over there. Those are the brackets. So the herb garden is gone. I moved that over to a neighbor's house. Opened up this entire space. I'll do some video on that shortly. And the rest of the garden looks pretty good. I took the hops plants out, opened up the space, bags of trash, old containers over there. This is kind of interesting. This might be something you can use, not the trash. But I decided, we usually grow potatoes in the beginning of the season. Well, I did a second planting of potatoes and they look like they're doing really well. I don't see any up on top, but I'll give you an update in the last video I do from this garden and just show you how second fall season planting of potatoes go. I think I can actually get 2 plantings of potatoes, spring and fall. Trash. A lot of this stuff I hope to bring with me containers are going over to friends' houses. As I mentioned in a video coming up, I shot this out of order. I'm taking the hops vines with me. I'm going to dig them up, maybe break them up and plant them. Let's come around here. I used to have shelving over here. That was broken down, and I actually took that over to a friend's house. These are my sweet potatoes. They're doing pretty well. Green beans are great late season crops. You can plant them late into the summer, and as long as it doesn't get down to freezing, you're going to get green beans really up until the frost comes. The tower is doing really well. This is the tower I highly recommend. In an earlier video about the green stalk tower, I said there was a cap that went on here, and people have been ordering it, which I appreciate. But there isn't a cap that goes on here. It was actually for this lower tray down here with the wheels, but somehow I confused it, and I would just put the cap right up there to hold the water. But you can drop your finger in there, fill it up to the 5th level, and just let the water pour through it. This is the best vertical system that I've seen. I've tried a couple over the years. I really like this, and you can just see it's still producing, you know, as of October 9th. Again, we had the trouble with the weather. I went through several plantings of cool weather crops, and finally I decided, you know what, I'm just going to throw a lot of seed in there. I can take these out and transplant them through the garden as needed. The arugula, it's getting beat up from the humidity. The disease has come in. It's been humid again now for the last 3 days. More lettuce down there, and you could, you know, just let that grow. Keep it fed, you know, lightly fed. Just cut it back, and you'll have plenty of, you know, baby lettuces. This is where I dropped my lettuce onto the ground, so that sprouted up by itself. This whole area opened up. I'll show you that in a second, you know, towards the end of the video. You know what? Let's cut over to that, and then we'll conclude with the tour. So I pulled up this 4x8 raised bed that I think I put down beginning of this year or last year. It was relatively new. Recognize this area? The bed was right there. This was my sunken container garden coming into the main part of my garden. I've removed all of that. Again, sad to see it go. I mean, look at all this great earth. My clay my garden when I started was just orange clay, and over the last 15 years, you know, it turned into some pretty good garden soil. So this is all going to get leveled out. I'm going to seed it and just make this an area in case the new people coming in have kids. That'll be some of a play area right up here. This used to be a slide for my kids and the neighborhood kids when they were all 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. The rest of the beds are going to stay when we get to this. So this is one bed that will be completely removed. And this is actually a little bit more, I guess, emotional than I thought it would be. This bed's been with me for at least 10 years. It was an herb garden, not being framed. Then I redesigned it, framed it, herb garden, and then I turned it into a pepper garden. It did really well. I'll be keeping all the peppers that I can dry, you know, the hot peppers and stuff I'll give to friends. But this is all going to get ripped out today. And it's just going to be one half of it. It's going to be seeded, and it's going to be grass again, and then that's just going to be mulched out. But getting ready to move and hopefully get, I don't know, 2 acres or 3 acres, and I can rebuild the rusted garden there. Well, that's 45 minutes worth of work. The bed's gone. Harvested all those sweet peppers. That's going to be peppers and eggs for this morning's breakfast. The garden's still giving, even though I don't think it knows, obviously, that it's no longer going to be a pepper bed or a garden, maybe some flowers. But this is my last season with this section. Some of the things that I'm pulling out, the rocks right in there, I collected over the decades when I would take my kids camping to different parts of Maryland, and they will be going to the new garden. But here's the transition from a productive herb and pepper garden to a bed to help me sell my home. I'm continuing to remove plants, cleaning this up because we are going to be moving. And I'm going to leave the green beans until really the last minute. I'll pull them out, but they are still producing well into the first week of October. That was one of my goals, and I'm still pulling green beans off of there. I'm going to take down my brandywine. I was really excited this year, as many of you know, to find that hydrogen peroxide can manage diseases on your tomato leaves. And well into October, well, the first week of October, and this plant is still growing. I'm not going to get any new tomatoes, so some nice looking yellow brandywines. The green ones will become fried green tomatoes for tomorrow, but this plant will all be coming out. And then the hops vine are going to be coming down. And I really just ran into bad weather. This move came along, so I never got to harvest the hops, but I've learned how to grow them. I think I'm going to, well, I'm going to take the vines down, but I'm going to dig up the root system and transfer that over to my new garden when I get there. Butterfly bush is a great fast-growing plant to put into your garden. You can hack this back down to about 3 or 4 feet and then it will just get huge. But it will bring in all these beautiful butterflies, and the monarchs are coming in right now. And it smells wonderful too. This is my purple asparagus. I'll be digging those roots up and taking them with me. I may remove this bed for the new people coming here. The peppers did extremely well. I got to get in there, dry more of the facing heaven peppers, and just pick the different peppers that are growing in there. Lots of rain, split cherry tomatoes. There's some good things on there, but this is going to be coming out. I'm going to do a video on showing you how to set this up with compost that I've been making in a composter. But the tomatoes did really well. I'm going to try and take my goji berry with me, the fig plant with me, but that's way too heavy to lift, so I got to figure out a way to store the root system or just, you know, hold it for a while. I don't know if you can see that, but it's a really cool spider web. Tomatoes did really well. Now that the weather's corrected itself, they're coming back in full force. Unfortunately, the frost is just around the corner. I'm going to be taking, you know, all my trellising material with me. And like I've been saying, the tomatoes have done extremely well with the use of hydrogen peroxide. Even more tomatoes to pick, more than I can really manage with them surviving so long. I've never had tomatoes really make it this far into October. But they're all over the place, and you can see that they're flowering more. And you know, if the frost doesn't come, I'm going to get more of the grape type tomatoes, more of the smaller cherry tomatoes, some late season okra. You can see that a lot of it's ready to pick in there. I got to get in there and get that. More green beans. All these funky diseases came in with the September humidity and rain. You can see the piles of stuff I have laying around. I'm going to have to say goodbye to the brown fig. I don't know if I'll be able to take a cutting or two, but that's doing really well. I'll cut that back. Lots of figs in there ready to go. And this is the Rillette Habanero I did a video on. It's producing again. I mean, look at all that. This is one of the best producing plants. It's a sweet habanero, or habanero, or habanero, depending on if you got a Jersey accent like me or not. But this is definitely a keeper for my garden. More of the Candyland All America Selections winners. I'm sorry, this is a Jasper, small cherry type tomato. So this is the rusted garden, almost to the last video tour of this garden. And again, I thank you all for being part of my gardening life for the last 5 or 6 years on my YouTube channel. But I will be starting the rusted garden over from ground that has to be turned. So please join me for the first turn of the garden, and I'm going to ask for help on how I may design a garden, other things I may grow have not grown before. I want to have chickens. I'll need help with that. I want to create a mushroom forest, all kinds of different things. And one more time, thanks so much for being part of my life and part of my garden. Thanks for watching.